Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello. Welcome back. Chase Thomas podcast, taping this on a Monday night. Old friend, Stay Hot's own Theo Ash is here. Theo, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Look at that. You're just so sustained. You're just like, I'm hanging out. It's good. I was diagnosing some plays. How has Theo Ash spent his NFL Monday? Have you been in the film room? What does it look like for you today?
I have been in the film room working on my NFL playoff predictions, putting together my, keys to the game. So today I've been watching a lot of Browns defensive film in preparation for their matchup with the Texans and how that's going to go. So that's been my main project today.
Well, it's better than my day because me and the Atlanta sports guys have been in group chat hell with what's going on with the Atlanta Falcons. So it's pretty dark. I'll just go ahead and tell you, Theo. It's a dark timeline right now in Atlanta.
What else is new? I think it's just the same timeline that you've been on. I think it's just a dark place.
It really is. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody, Theo. But you know what's not a dark place? That I don't know if you're surprised to be here, but the Packers obviously make the playoffs. The Packers, Jordan Love turning the corner this season and really solidifying himself as the long-term answer for the Packers at QB. Are you officially sold on what Jordan Love can be, and what do you think his ultimate ceiling is? Is it NFL MVP? Is it 10 to 15 range? Is it somewhere in that Dak zone where he's regarded as one of the best, but never the best? Where is Jordan Love for you right now?
I think his ceiling is MVP of the league. I think that if we're talking ceiling, like, why not? I think that it didn't surprise me, the results that he had this year. Watching his film this offseason, I found myself becoming very Jordan Love pilled. I actually really liked his body of work and the limited snaps that we saw from him. Even going back to the Chiefs game where they shredded him with the blitz, I thought that I saw his brain working in a way that made sense to me in terms of processing information on the football field. And even in that game, he was trying to get it to Devontae Adams one-on-one down the field and standing in there. And I saw him hit anticipation shots over the middle of the field versus the Lions in that season. And then I saw him versus the Eagles, hitting the top of his drop, getting the ball out fast, like hitting hole shots, throwing with anticipation, splitting hook defenders. Like, it was all there in that Eagles game. And when you looked at his Utah State film, when he's running around and making all these crazy highlights, you're like, okay, this is a guy who can operate an offense and offers you a lot of the out of structure stuff. And these last 7 weeks, we have seen a guy who is kind of a master of both worlds, where he's executing a LaFleur offense, a Shanahan tree offense that has a lot of motion and has a lot of the bells and whistles you're looking for to make things easy. But he can also do it with pressure in his face, off of his back foot, from multiple arm slots. He can break tackles. Like this year, he stiff-armed Max Crosby to the ground and picked up a first down that way. He's big. He cuts back when he runs. Like, he's got the huge arm. So I think the sky's the limit with Jordan Love. The second half of the year, I think he's been playing as good as any quarterback. And
what's think different in the second half?
I think that the rest of the team really has locked in. I think that this LaFleur offense is easy if you get it down pre-snap, but in terms of running the right routes, getting set pre-snap, motion takes time. Like, you don't get as much time to just look at things and get guys set, because a solid 3-4 seconds of the play clock needs to account to someone going in motion. And I think their pre-snap processes in the beginning of the season were all out of whack. I don't think people knew what they were doing. Just tons of penalties, tons of miscommunications. Like, it looked like, especially a game against the Vikings, the first one they played, they looked like garbage, really, from an operational standpoint. But I think as the season has gone on, the youngest team in the league has started to pick it up a little bit more, and guys have been able to reach their full potential now that they actually understand everything that's happening and what it's supposed to look like. And I think that's what's changed over the second half of the year.
It's fun. I can't wait for Love versus Dak. I think this is going to be a really, really fun matchup. What's your immediate gut reaction to this for the Packers? Is this a good one? Do you think they can win this one? Where are you at with Cowboys Packers?
I think they can win it for sure. I mean, I don't know if they will win it. Their defense allowed 30 points to the Panthers. It has been a rough go of it all year for that side of the ball, but I think that the Jordan Love and the offense are going to be able to score points. The Cowboys have struggled with motion. They've been hit with a lot of injuries in the linebacker room. Going back to the Cardinals game, they got upset because guys were going in motion and the second level couldn't quite sort it out, and they just got killed on the ground that way. And the Packers are a much better team than the Cardinals are. They got killed by the 49ers, who obviously have a Shanahan tree coach in Kyle Shanahan. They put up 50, and then they got beat by the Dolphins as well. So guys who run that sort of system, run that sort of scheme, can cause this Cowboys defense major problems. I think that the pass rush is obviously ferocious in Dallas, but you start to look at that second and third level, there are guys who can be picked on, and we have a coach who is very good at exploiting those kinds of things. So it'll be, how can they take Micah Parsons out of the game? How can they get him to pat his feet? How can they get him to, have to think a little bit more and not be in situations where he can just pin his ears back and rush? And if they can do that, I think they've got a good chance to make it at least a shootout and, make it close, and anything can happen from there.
You talked about the defense. That's just been an issue. Obviously, Go Long TD, friend of the pod, Ty Dunn, he did a really good piece on this defense, and highly encourage folks to go read Go Long TD, one of the best independent NFL blogs out there. And it's something that I thought was really fascinating. It's just that, like, what this season could have been if you don't bring back Joe Barry. Do you think about that a lot, of like if you made a change before this year because you've seen Jordan Love make the jump and these receivers start to get more comfortable with how young they are, that, like, man, do you think they win the division potentially? Like, is this a team that's in the top 3 in the NFC if they even get a league average defensive coordinator to replace Barry this past offseason?
I think they could. I mean, they're 6th in offensive DVOA right now. I don't know exactly where the Lions finished, but it can't be too much higher than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the defense folding in multiple situations, allowing, like, their game against Tommy DeVito was embarrassing, and how easy things were for him. Their game against the Panthers was embarrassing, although I did think Bryce Young hit some money throws that you got to give him a lot of credit for in that one, more than DeVito did. But yeah, I definitely think about it a lot. Barry is someone who's never really had a ton of success anywhere that he's been as the defensive coordinator. In fact, Green Bay is by far his most successful stop in terms of points allowed and yards allowed, which is bad, right? So
Yeah.
they wanted someone from that Shanahan, not from that Shanahan tree, that Fangio tree, who is kind of working in LA when they won the Super Bowl, that puts too high and works the split field safety stuff. That's a part of that world, just like they were trying to be on the cutting edge of the offensive side of it with the Shanahan stuff and hiring LaFleur. This was kind of the defensive answer, but that tree kind of get picked thin. And Joe Barry is someone that, wasn't necessarily, I think, the best guy to hire, even though they did want a certain defensive scheme. And yeah, I would definitely be interested in seeing this team with a guy like Wink Martindale, who is, man coverage on the back end and send the blitz. Like, I feel like Green Bay has a lot of good players in Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and Jair Alexander. But they just played dumb, and they never quite got a good handle on, like, what they were supposed to be doing. It felt like in zone coverage, and made a lot of mistakes and a lot of stunts in the up front that caused confusion more for themselves than the offense. So yeah, I think about it too much, probably.
I wonder too, like, could they have done better? Like, is there a name that you would have liked that they were maybe linked to? Is it a LaFleur issue? Like, are we sure that Barry's out after this year? Is that something you worry about? Is that, like, there is a loyalty there that maybe he continues to bring him back? Like, I don't know. I wonder on that front too for LaFleur.
Yeah, I definitely think about that. I mean, I think at midseason there was a point where they could have pulled the trigger on firing Barry. I think last year they could have pulled the trigger on firing Barry. Now they've made the playoffs after holding the Vikings and the Bears to a limited number of points. And if they get first rounded, like, maybe Barry has done enough. But And I don't think Barry's job is absolutely like, if they bring him back because they go on a run this postseason and like the defense is a huge part of it, there's a limit on how mad you can really be. But if Dak Prescott drops 40 on them and they don't fire Barry, that I think that would be a bit unserious. And yeah, I do think that it's a possibility that they don't, because they've had reason to before, when they didn't make the playoffs. And this year they are there. So who knows what'll happen.
Well, it feels like the scrutiny too is just a lot because the Packers have been so defense heavy in the top of their drafts. Like they've just drafted so many guys on defense and early in the draft. Like that's just been their focus is, and you just kind of obviously there's been some hilarious Quay Walker moments there, but I mean by and large they've drafted pretty well. It's just when you accumulate or when you invest so much in on that side of the ball, you expect the defense to be better than what it is because you've just allocated so many resources to that side of the ball early in the draft.
Definitely. And it's all front seven too. Like with all of those resources, like the safety position was still a liability going into this year. And like you're a defense that's supposed to limit big plays by putting a shell on everything. But if your safeties are bad, like that shell is terrible, like it can be easily broken. So you're taking resources out of the run game, putting them in the back end, and then the back end is messing it up anyway. I think that was such a big problem. And then this year, I guess it has gotten maybe a little better, but they didn't add any safety or anything like that this year. They just added Van Ness, who came in as a kind of a rotational guy and was fine. But like, what did that piece really give you this year? And that's kind of always been the Packers' MO, is like they don't really draft for need so much. I feel like they kind of just go with a freakish talent in the trenches. Like that's kind of always been their thing, is like who lights up the combine? How can we make like the biggest, strongest, fastest defense possible with a linebacker or defensive lineman? And they are an athletic defense, but they just played dumb this year and they weren't sound on the back end.
Switching gears a little bit, Theo. You get a lot of flack and a lot of attention for your Tua Tagovailoa thoughts.
I do.
What were your thoughts about Tua and the Miami Dolphins just fumbling away? Home field advantage. What's been mostly a special season for Miami, a breakthrough year. Tyreek Hill right there in the MVP conversation. Jalen Waddle having a great year. I mean, it seemed like everything was coming together for the Dolphins to maybe even come out of the AFC. Like number one seed was on the table, and then life came at them fast. And obviously the bad pick late. I mean, where are you at with Tua going into the postseason and maybe going into next year? And how much has your thoughts changed about Miami over the last couple of weeks?
Zero is how my thoughts have changed about Tua. I think that Tua is in the tier with Jared Goff, and at the low end, Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was on the 49ers. Like, he's good. He executes the system well. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. Like, his release is really special. The way he can layer the ball in there is pretty special too. But at the end of the day, you see a guy like Josh Allen who can go out and get you a bucket no matter what is happening. And Tua is just not that guy. Like, Tua can't get you a bucket if the linebackers sink to a certain depth on the dig, right? Like, he tried to force it in there versus the Ravens, like, around like 5 people, and it got tipped and intercepted. And he's not someone who can create out of structure. And I think that players win over scheme, and the Dolphins are all scheme, and they're all motion, and they're all speed, and all those things are great. But sometimes the defense like just knows what they're about and knows what they're about to run, and can put bodies in the spots where the Dolphins like to hit. And Tua has to be more multidimensional. And I just don't think that he's a very multidimensional quarterback. I think his arm strength is a real limitation. You know, his ability out of structure is a real limitation. He's really good at the things he's good at, but there are quarterbacks out there who are good at multiple different things. And I think that they haven't paid him. You know, Jalen Hurts got an extension this offseason. He was in that draft class. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, even Jordan Love got a 1-year extension this draft class. It's only Tua who didn't. And man, now that they're on the road, he brought them to a wild card round. Like, they didn't beat anybody good except for Dallas. I guess they did beat Dallas. I'll give them that. But overall, like, struggled in big games, I would say, has been a valid criticism of the Tua McDaniel era. And now they've got to go on the road in what is apparently going to be like a blizzard single-digit game in Kansas City with that front rolling in. Like, I don't know how much confidence I have in them to win that game or make a run. And if they don't, like, what kind of contract are you giving Tua? Are you making a move like McVay did going from Goff to Stafford? Man, I think that their future, I mean, they still have a whole playoff run to do, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I still think that they're like a decent team, although with their edges out, it's going to be really, really tough. But yeah, I don't really know. I would certainly not be interested in giving to a mega deal, but we'll see if the Dolphins feel the same way.
Would you be surprised if they won the AFC?
Yes, I definitely would be surprised if they came in without Chubb, without Phillips, you know, with their struggles in big games as kind of more of a one-dimensional team. If they went into Baltimore and won, if they went into Kansas City in the freezing cold and won, to go on that kind of run, I don't expect it of them at this point. They've lost to the Bills twice this year. Are they going to beat the Bills like if they play again? I don't really think so.
Hard to beat a team 3 times, maybe.
There are numbers about that. I know it happened last year, and I can't remember what they said. If it's hard when you've swept them in the regular season, or if like the odds are overwhelming you in your favor. There was some study that I read last year on that is just slipping my mind now if it's good or bad.
Well, it works in the Pac-12 because Washington beat Oregon twice, and then Utah beat USC twice, and they had no problem because everyone was talking themselves. It's like really hard to beat the same team twice, and it's like actually turns out it's not. Like they're just better.
Actually, the results of that passes my sniff test. If you beat them twice, you're probably better, and you're gonna beat them again. But it definitely would surprise me. Although certainly stranger runs have happened. I mean, it has been kind of a banner year for the Dolphins, but I don't know how McDaniel gets them like psyched up to be an underdog, like go on the road. This whole year they've been front runner. Look at the offense. Look at Tyreek Hill. Look at Tua. Look at the numbers they're putting up. Look at they've got Vic Fangio. Look, since Jalen Ramsey is back, the defense has been the best in the league. This is a real, and now all of a sudden it's like, we're the underdogs. We're going on the road. Like we couldn't even beat the Bills in a dysfunctional year where they fired their offensive coordinator. Like it's been all scrutiny for the Bills all year. They're the ones still in the driver's seat. Like, I don't know how you spin that narrative if you're Mike McDaniel. Like you're coming off this huge failure. I guess that's what you got to feed into is like, but man, I feel like the excitement is just gone from the Miami season, losing the division. And I kind of think that it's, that they don't have it right now.
And the worst matchup, just the blizzard in Kansas City against Mahomes, is just, I mean,
with no pass rush too. Like your interior linemen are good, but they're not. Are they going to get pressure on what is really a good interior line on Kansas
Probably
City?
not.
Like I would want good edges against their tackles, right? And they don't have that. Yeah, it's going to be rough.
But on the flip side, the Chiefs receivers suck. So it's just going to be one of those. Maybe this is going to be like an ugly, low-scoring game where it's just neither team wants to win this game.
It's the one on Peacock, so hopefully it's the most skippable.
People make these jokes. Have y'all watched the Peacock basketball and stuff? Great screen, great scores. Like the Peacock app actually is good for sports. Like people are dunking on the Peacock app. Folks, there's some bad apps and there's some bad. I'm a big score look person and how it looks in the broadcast. Peacock looks good for basketball. Okay. So I'm like, I think it might actually be okay.
Do you have to pay for it?
It's a good question. I think I do. So I'm not sure if you have to do that.
That's
but
what
I know
everybody is. I think that's what everybody is roasting the app for. Is like, I'm not paying to watch it.
Hey, look, everyone they say that, and then guess what? They're all gonna do it because they're like, I want to watch NFL playoff football. Like I'm gonna sign up for Peacock for this, and then
there's got to be the free trial, and then
that's also
available. But like for my grandpa, he's probably not gonna go through all that and just have to miss this one.
He might be a Peacock connoisseur. He might be all locked in on King of Queens.
Maybe he is.
Reruns. You never know. Final thing here, Theo, and we'll get you out of here. Best coaching job this year in your estimation. When you think about the film you've watched and all the different teams, who do you think, maybe it's just based on personnel and what they had to work with, who do you think has actually maximized their talent the best? Because this coach probably won't win coach of the year because that's just like victory type award. Who is it for you?
I'm going to give it to Kyle Shanahan, honestly. I think that when you look at what he's done with the 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant at quarterback, and the environment that he's been able to create, it's him. I think that they rolled to the number 1 seed in the NFC. They look like the clear favorites to win that, and they look like I don't know if they got beat by Baltimore, so maybe they're not the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But I think when we're talking about kind of the same deal as Mike McDaniel, we got an MVP candidate, we got an All-Pro candidate, we got a Pro Bowl candidate at every single position. I think you got to look at the guy in charge, and that's Kyle Shanahan. His scheme has set the tone for this entire era. I kind of think we're in a situation where it used to be Peyton and Brady and Roethlisberger always competing for the AFC championship spot, and then Rodgers and Breeze for the. I kind of think that it's not so much a quarterback era right now, but it's always going to be like McVay and Shanahan and McDaniel and LaFleur in those spots instead, like year after year after year. Like it really wouldn't surprise me if we got Shanahan versus McVay again. And I know I just got done with talking about Miami and how they're not going to make it, but maybe like McDaniel could be there as well. Like I think that those are kind of the schemes that are going to kind of repeat and always sort of be there. Like I think that that's a special group of guys, and Shanahan's kind of the ringleader, and this has kind of been his masterpiece season. So I've got to give it to him. A lot of guys have maybe done good stuff with less, but I mean, even with the disaster in Baltimore, Brock Purdy is number 1 in every efficiency stat by a mile. And I think that that's so impressive to create an environment. And Brock Purdy himself has been plenty impressive, but still, like everybody has been good in that environment. And I got to give a lot of credit to Kyle Shanahan for that.
And no drop off. I think people underestimate just how hard it is you have a brutal postseason loss to Philadelphia where you go down 2 quarterbacks and it's just, you felt like you were the best team in the NFC last year. You felt good about your game against the Eagles, and for it to go the way that it did, could have completely destroyed the team, where it's like we missed our spot.
And no drop off after multiple years. We see the Super Bowl hangover and like the brain drain that happened to the Eagles now that they've lost the Super Bowl and lost all their coordinators. Think about what's happening to the 49ers for years, right? Like everybody wants their guys, and they lost the Super Bowl in 2019 with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they never really had a hangover. They've been back, time and time again. They haven't gotten all the way there, but they've competed, and they've been one of the best teams in the league since that happened. No doubt about it. And they've got a really good chance to win it all this year. So I'm super impressed with the job that Kyle Shanahan has done. And he would have my vote for coach of the year, even though Stefanski, I think, has done a great job, and LaFleur has done a great job. And there's multiple guys who have done a great job, but
not Arthur Smith for you. Not Arthur Smith. He doesn't win your coach of the year.
Arthur Smith wins my, he wins my press conference entertainment value of the year.
There you go.
Coaching award.
It's great. I love picking 8th every year, Theo.
For railing at the.
No, it's great. I'm having fun, Theo. We're all laughing. All my friends are just outside of frame. We're having a great time. It's great.
I wanted it to work out with him. I thought it was funny to have it was fun to have kind of a quirky scheme guy in the NFL. So many dudes run the same stuff. It's not a very schematically diverse league like college is. But it's that way for a reason. If you've got the best athletes, you can kind of run the best stuff. And he probably should have been a little bit more like everybody else.
But it is fun, like you said, like kind of running this. I mean, if it's good, if it's winning, it's fun. But when you're not winning and when you're just, you put all your eggs in the Desmond Ridder basket and it doesn't go your way. I mean,
yeah.
It's, I don't know what they're going to do, but Bill Belichick roaming the sidelines in Atlanta might be one of the weirdest visuals after 28-3 and what happened. And like just the weirdness of that being a legit possibility with him being the betting favorite for next Falcons coach. Like, Theo, it's just that weird.
That is like the strangest thing I could like possibly imagine is him being the Falcons head coach. But I think it makes sense. You bet on the offensive guru and then it doesn't work. And a lot of times teams swing in the complete opposite direction. Right. And it doesn't get more opposite than that. It's something we see all the time. Like Ben Johnson, how different of a candidate is he than what Arthur Smith was coming out of Tennessee, like kind of a similar philosophy, younger type of coach, offensive minded guy, and it didn't work. So it's kind of tough to get excited for the same thing again, I think. either consciously or subconsciously. So I could see it happening, I guess, if they want to go in the complete other direction.
Theo, we can watch you every week on the Stay Hot YouTube channel. Listen on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. One of my favorite weekly NFL and NBA podcasts each and every week. Theo Ash, go follow him. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all that good stuff. Theo, thank you so much, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.